that's always problematic when I try to set it up is the Instagram one, but I'm going to try right now. Hopefully we'll have some success again, and then almost live. There we go. I think I'm starting to get a system down here, and thank you everybody for the patience in doing so. I feel as though I need to get another boom here, but then I can't have like booms all over the place. It's a little ridiculous. So, good morning, and I hope everybody is having the best day of their life, the best morning of their life. If you're not, I'm going to do my best, and we're all going to do our best cumulatively to make sure today is one of the greatest days of your life. So good morning to everybody, and it's so good to see you all here. And so much has been going on. Good morning, Hannah. Oh, we're going to talk about you, Hannah, a little bit later on, or at least what's going on with the events. And thank you everybody for being here. I hope you're having the best day. This is Freedom Coffee, the live stream where we all get together and share each other's opinions, ideas in the comments. And already, Robin, good morning. Good morning, Robin, Megan, Sonia, Ryan. Ryan's brewing his coffee now. I just scrambled to get mine done in time, and I ran out of, don't make fun of me, almond milk, but that's part of the modified diet that I'm on right now. I hope you guys all had an amazing day yesterday. I was down in the US, which is why I was not doing a live stream. And I always keep, contemplating, should I be doing live streams while I'm down in the US? Because some of the places I go, there's amazing scenery, and it'd just be an amazing backdrop. Like I can think of, there's one particular place I go frequently, and the backdrop is just the valley in Pennsylvania, and all you see, it's obviously trees, but the rolling landscape is absolutely beautiful. But we'll get to that, and I'm contemplating that. The only problem is I don't want to have I'm bad enough for production value when we're here, and can you imagine what I'm trying to figure it out from inside the truck? I am not sure how well it would be. Plus, the internet connection it's pretty good, but it's not as good as here. So, once again, we're going to come together and we're going to discuss and solve all the world's problems, right? We're going to discuss the freedoms that we have, that we're fortunate enough to have, our natural freedoms, meaning they're limited restrictions, and we're going to work to expanding our freedoms in the future, and we're going to discuss sometimes some negative issues, sometimes just issues in the world, but we're going to look at things from the positive frame, and we're going to talk about these white pills and all the amazing things that are going on in the world right now. So there's a lot of good things, and K9, you're already ahead of me. That's honestly, from my frame, that's a sign of a positive occurrence. What she's referring to is actually the first thing on my list is some fake news smear merchant named David Aiken. I apparently spelt his name wrong or something, but don't really care. I barely know who the guy is. Who works for the very trolly legacy media, which is how I look at them, as trolls. And he was in Pierre Poliver. I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce his name right, because everybody yells at me I pronounce it wrong. The leader of the Conservative Party had his first press conference, and he was heckled. I'm just waving back to everybody on Instagram. Wow, lots of people here. Thank you. He was heckled by this fake news smear merchant, David Aiken, and David Aiken was being really inappropriate. At least wouldn't even allow Pierre to talk. It's his news conference, and he wouldn't allow him to talk. That's not how media works. I'd hate to explain that to him. So, and he just dropped the F-bomb, which I don't know why everybody's so offended by that, but whatever, it is what it is. And he said, to the leader of the opposition, go F yourself. on I guess it was a hot mic, or just the mics of the room picked it up. And what was really funny to me was that guy specifically was banned from the Freedom Convoy press conferences. He had reached out to me frequently. I'm a reporter, a journalist, whatever he called him as, from Global News, and he wanted access to the press conferences, to which I said, nope, that's it. Nope, sorry, you're not. We're not interested in speaking with you. And I think once again, and this keeps happening over and over again, despite the people who were arguing with me during the Freedom Convoy, the decision to keep those people out of our official press conferences really worked well for us, because we had. For some of you who don't know, I don't know if you might have even seen all of them. There's 3 official ones. The first one, Cian Bexty, I think, was the one who streamed it the longest. It was 2.5 hours, or 2 hours and 15 minutes. And it was Epoch Times, Post Millennial, True North Media, National Telegraph, a Persian news outlet. I don't know what it was called. There's a couple of them from there, and there's a whole bunch of them. Rupa was there from the National Post. Actually, she was, she's an independent journalist under contract, but she was there on behalf of the National Post, and it was amazing. It was 2 hours and 15 minutes, so everybody left with zero ambiguity. They knew our full context, exactly why we were there, our motivations. There was no question as to what the motives were for the Freedom Convoy. And but the rest of the fake media, it's not that they wouldn't understand, they wouldn't care. It doesn't matter what we would say. They would do to us and to me exactly what they did to Pierre yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And once again, proving my point, listen, I got to pat myself on the back once in a while that I was right. But it's funny. So this guy, Aiken, he posted a statement, a response to this, because a number of people picked it up. Jonathan Kay specifically comment on it, and I think it's in Quillette, which is his publication, if I'm not mistaken. Andy Lee, a whole bunch of people, and he responded by saying, "This is the smear merchant's excuse." Which normally, okay, people want to apologize. You have to give them the chance, especially if they do it almost immediately after. So he says, lots of readers / viewers called me about today's Parliament Hill presser. I guess he posted it yesterday. Many said I was rude and disrespectful to Pierre Poilievre. I agree. I'm sorry for that. I want politicians to answer questions, but there are better ways of making the point. What do you think? Do you think that's honest? Do you think that's exactly what he thinks? I'm not so sure. By the way, Ken in the comments, she says, "Why isn't Locals working?" I don't know, dude. I'm looking at the stream right here on Locals. Seems to be working fine. Honkingforfreedom.locals.com, by the way, is where you log into it. So I don't know. Check it out. I'll check everything out at the end of the stream and make sure it's fine, but it seems to be okay. So what do you think? Should we forgive him? Because he issued an apology almost immediately after, right? So shouldn't we give him the opportunity to have his apology accepted? I don't know. The problem, I think, here is, firstly, was this a one-off thing, or was this is this a pattern of behavior? And, judging by what he said about the Freedom Convoy, that he was very aggressive towards the Freedom Convoy, I really don't. I think this is more of a pattern of behavior. And when something is a one-off, yeah, you want to apologize for it, great. But when it's your regular pattern of behavior, that's when I say, no, fuck him. No, I don't care about your apology. You're just going to be omitted from absolutely any future press conferences that I'm involved in. And There's going to be quite a few coming up soon, by the way. And we'll just stick to this formula of dealing with honest actors in alternative media who at least will hear us in our full context. And they may not necessarily agree, but at least they're going to give us the benefit of the doubt and speak honestly to people. I'm trying to make a note of all the people who are commenting and saying something nice and whatever, so I can tag them in the future when I do stuff. So that's why when you see me writing things down, because I feel bad. So many people try to reach out and say nice things and whatever. But the problem is, when I go to tag and repost and whatever, forget who was there. And I always feel bad when I don't acknowledge those of you who are supporting myself, supporting the causes I'm involved in, and all the other people that I work with, their causes and whatever. So that's what I'm doing. Current creative, I'm not telling BJ just from a look. Okay, you guys are having a little conversation there. Okay, got it. So my point is, I think when it's a one-off thing and it's, I don't know, a mistake. I mean, like, it's a comedy club. I don't know what you're heckling people for. You let the guy speak and then you ask the questions after. Like, that's how journalism is supposed to work. Last I checked, but he didn't do that. So I think, no, thank you, apology not accepted, and moving on. The next topic, this is great. So I was on Mark Petroni's radio show yesterday, not to pivot so quickly, but we all know the fake news is fake news. And I think, by the way, you should get on Twitter and heckle him back, because he seems to like heckling. So just heckle him and give as many memes back to him as possible, just to share the love, right? Because, he wants honest answers from politicians. Well, we want honest answers from journalists. So, yeah, go ahead and do that. Anyways, I'm just checking the comments here, too. We got a bunch of comment streams going on all at once. Headshots on Instagram says, is he the same way with liberal leaders or other groups? Well, of course not. Of course. But, if you challenge them on that, they'll take one anecdotal experience of, remember the day on January 2nd of 2018 when I asked Justin Trudeau a difficult question about whatever. I mean, they're always going to pull out some sort of anecdote. It's almost like a canned line. But it's, again, the pattern of regular reoccurrence of their behavior is what ruins their credibility. So, yeah, that's. I mean, we all know that they're in the pocket of the government, that the government finances them. And how much does that fuel their motives? A lot. And I'll give you this one example. I've spoken about this once before, but I'll do it again since there's a lot of you here. So I do know quite a few people in legacy media who I talk to quietly behind the scenes from time to time. And that's how I know who the honest actors are and who are just, the paid for Pravda smear merchants. And, one particular journalist, I remember him sharing the story that he wrote about the horse that was trampled that woman in Ottawa. Remember, the RCMP came in, or the mounted, I don't know if they're RCMP or if they were just mounted regional police or whatever. But anyways, police came on horses and they trampled this woman and another guy who seems to have been an undercover cop who got caught in the crosshairs and in the crossfire. So when this journalist went and wrote about the Candy. That's right. Thank you, K9. Candy's her name. When this journalist went to write about it, he wrote a piece about it. He was there. He was standing right there, right in front of them. And so he wrote a story reporting on exactly what happened. Well, what was the next step? Went through his editor. His editor approved it. It was published in their paper and on their online. All the papers are online now. And the next day, he is well connected, obviously, in political circles. he was contacted by, I believe, 2 cabinet members or 2 members of Liberal caucus, one or the other. I can't remember what he told me. And he said they said to him, listen, you need to change the story. And he was dumbfounded. He said, what do you mean change the story? And they said, well, the horses were scared by some bicycles. Somebody kind of, held up a bicycle, which scared the horses, which, by the way, I thought the lefties love bicycles. Aren't we all supposed to be riding bicycles in -40 like a good communist country? But anyways, all of a sudden they want to use bicycles as a weapon. Fine. And he said, I'm sorry, but I was standing right there. I was there all afternoon. I watched everything with my own eyes. Like, let's not do the don't believe your lying eyes thing with me. That's not going to work. I was there, saw what happened. And so that was a couple of uncomfortable conversations, apparently, but he didn't back down. He wanted to stick to the truth because he's not going to lie to his readers. Fine. The next day, that day, he got additional calls from work saying he needs to change the story. He needs to change the story. And he said, no, I'm not changing the story. I was there. And this, I think, was on a Friday, if I remember correctly. I was all over. There was a lot of things going on in my life right now, so at that time, so I was losing track of days as well. And the following day, which I believe was a Saturday, he got a call from the CEO of this company saying, you need to change the story. And he said, I'm not changing the story. I was there. That's factually what happened. And if you don't like it, you can remove it. You can remove it from the website. I don't care. But I'm not changing my story to protect the government and the police for what they just did. And they all realize he's not going to back down. They can't remove the story because the story got so much traction. It was read from all over the world. It was one of their top stories, I believe, of that month. So what could they do? Think about it. Think from a persuasion perspective. You have this journalist who won't write a false story or change his story to be false. So what can you do to discredit the story? Think about it. It's pretty simple. What you would do is you get that whore, his name is Brian Lilly, to write a story that counteracted that said, well, there's apparently there was a bike that was held and that scared the horses. Some of the people from, I don't know what he said, their vantage point or whatever, they said that there was no bicycle, but there are witnesses on the ground that said there's a bicycle there, so there you go. So I think 2 other journalists did that because you have one telling the truth. So you need to spread a lie. You need to get 2 more journalists on board to try to discredit it, right? And that's a persuasion technique. And I've even run into people that said, "Oh yeah, I heard that a bicycle had scared the horses." That's how legacy media and fake news media from all sides of the political spectrum, that's how they lie to you, specifically and directly. And they know exactly what they're doing. And that's exactly why they were banned from the Freedom Convoy press conferences. So there you go. There's my piece. So forget the fake news media. They all suck. We all know that they suck. And listen, there's a lot of fake news, fake ideas that's online as well. That's sometimes alternative media. I listen to sometimes Tim Pool. I like Tim Pool, but sometimes it's like, dude, that's not accurate. But I don't think he does it maliciously. That's the difference. He may get things incorrect. People do that. Nobody's infallible. But there's a difference between being infallible or intentionally deceptive. Speaking of intentionally deceptive, Justin Blackface Trudeau. I noticed blackface is trending on Twitter once again, which I don't know about you, that always puts a smile on my face. He said, I know you're going to be shocked, but he said something stupid, which is, he says something stupid on a day that ends with the letter Y, right? So the latest stupid thing that Prime Minister Blackface Diversity said he made a comment about Bitcoin. And again, this is not, I know there's some people in this audience that are not into Bitcoin, and it's neither here nor there. That's not the point of this. I discussed this yesterday on Mark Petroni's radio show, which is on AM 960, Saga 960, I think is what it is, saga960.ca. He also has they also upload it as a podcast. So shout out to Mark Petroni, M-A-R-C, not a K. And if you download the Mark Petroni show from whatever podcast player you're listening to, their RSS feed is all over the place, then you'll be able to listen to it. We talked about this quite at length for about 15 minutes. Because I go on his show and I try to, we talk about politics, Bitcoin, a whole bunch of stuff, right? So I know this is not a Bitcoin space. I get that. But Trudeau did say that he made a statement how Bitcoin was completely irresponsible. Did I put it here? Yeah, this is what this is what financial analyst and financial manager Justin Blackface Trudeau, who is spending our money like water. This is the financial advice that he's giving all of us. He says, this is about Pierre Poilievre. That's who he's trying to go after in this. He says, telling people they can opt out of inflation by investing in cryptocurrencies, okay, there's a problem already with that, but is not responsible leadership. Fighting against life-saving vaccines is not responsible leadership. Opposing the pandemic supports the saved jobs and helps families is not responsible leadership. Anyways, the point is he went on about Bitcoin, and he told people, if you had bought Bitcoin, you would have lost everything. Okay, so I think I mentioned in my interview with Mark, like I know somebody who bought Bitcoin initially when it was 9 cents per coin, 9 cents, 9 pennies, 9 US pennies. So I don't know, $5 Canadian, but 9 pennies Canadian. And it's right now $28,000 Canadian, at least last I checked. But this isn't a hedge against inflation. And the funny thing that for me is Justin Trudeau, remember when the CBC and the fake news media staged this thing in a classroom, tried to make him look like a teacher in front of a blackboard, and there's all sorts of, I believe there were physics or mathematical calculations behind him. I don't remember. I mean, I might be misremembering it. But remember he started talking about quantum computing because he's so intelligent. He's a quantum computing expert, and he was teaching all of us, teaching all Canadians and everybody around the world, what is quantum computing? And he basically regurgitated a basic summary statement from Wikipedia, and that was his expertise in quantum computing. But it's interesting that Mr. Prime Minister Blackface Diversity Quantum Computing doesn't know the structure of the most basic, slowest database platform that exists, which is a blockchain database. And he doesn't understand how the monetary layer has been affixed to that database structure. But this is a quantum computer, quantum computing expert. Like, it's so staged and so artificial and plastic, and it has been since day one. I've been screaming about it since day one that the guy is a fraud in every sense of the word. And I think what's ended his political career is not just how he treated all the everybody during the Freedom Convoy and his contempt for the rest of us, but the fact is that the emperor now has no clothes. Everyone can see everything he's been saying for all of this time has been a fraud. He's just been regurgitating prepared statements that he doesn't even understand himself. And I like this, this is a good comment on, Bitcoin versus what Prime Minister Blackface Diversity said. And this is from a friend of mine, Brad Mills, who's he's also a podcaster in the Bitcoin space. I think he's a venture capitalist as well, if I'm not mistaken. Good dude. He said Bitcoin is now $28,000. Here we go. Sorry. Trudeau says it's irresponsible to advocate Canadians opt out of inflation with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is now $28,000, a 70 times increase from, when did you start? I think I missed it. Oh, from when, it's a 70 times increase from the price of Bitcoin when Prime Minister Blackface was elected, when Bitcoin was $400. A 0.5% allocation to Bitcoin would have protected you from Trudeau's irresponsible leadership. So when Trudeau was elected, Bitcoin was $400, and Trudeau's saying, don't buy Bitcoin, it's not a hedge against inflation, and now it's $28,000. I mean, what can you say? The facts are what the facts are, no matter how many nonverbals and ums and fling of the hair that he does, and he's just so fake and plastic. And I'm glad to see even reasonable people and liberal-minded people are slowly starting to see it. Amanda, did you see the other day when he asked about his critics calling him a hypocrite, and then he is, sorry, it's very small text, and that he is divisive? Then give the detailed BS rant that we should look at the source of the criticism. I mean, what else is he gonna say, right? Like, that's the whole postmodern, extremist, leftist worldview. And, you know, some people on all sides have it, this level of cognitive dissonance, that when somebody attacks you with the facts, you just respond by discrediting the source. And you see this a lot. It makes me crazy. You see this all over the internet. Anytime, you know, you'll see people will do a debate online, and somebody will then source a quote. Like, for example, what's a good example of this? Mark Twain, the quote of, if you don't read the news, you're uninformed. You read the news, you're misinformed. A very famous quote attributed to Mark Twain. And when you post it, automatically the trained barking seals, because this is all they learn in university now, respond in mass of, that quote is misattributed. Maybe, maybe not, but it doesn't matter. Still the point of the quote. But no, they're just trying to win an argument in all cases. And it doesn't matter the facts of what you're trying to claim. Once they try to find one sprinkle, they try to create one sprinkle of doubt in the mind of the recipient, then they hope that's going to discredit everything else that they say. That's how leftists operate when they debate in the argument. I guess you finally logged into locals. From Jason. Thanks, brother. It says, Mark Gersting fills me with rage every time he shits on cryptocurrency. The guy is a universal dropout and total fraud. The Bitcoin halving cycle speaks for itself, 100%. I won't get into the details, but if you ever want to learn about Bitcoin, go onto Twitter. I join a lot of Bitcoin spaces with some really intelligent and experienced people. Search DJ Satoshi 18. He's a great source, and he hosts a lot of Bitcoin for Beginner chats. He then also, Jason also goes on to say, everything Trudeau says is the opposite of what is happening or what he is doing. If he was smart, he would do the same right now and hedge the Canadian dollar on Bitcoin as Russia did. Yeah, if he was smart. But you think Blackface knows anything about monetary policy or fiscal policy? Like, come on. He has... He's plastic. The whole thing is plastic, and it's just theater, and it's been theater since day one. Okay. So I'm just reading through some of the comments here, and by the way, don't hesitate to share. Hitchhiker brings up an interesting point about the good point, brother. That's a very, very good point. See, this is what you can learn from people who live in rural communities. They understand the rural life. A lot of truckers are like that. Like, I learned so much from them. I've never learned so much about farming like I have this year. So a good example, he says when he's talking about the horses that trampled the woman, and the narrative from some of the fake news and the government that there was a bicycle that scared the horses. And Hitchhiker says those horses are picked and trained not to react out of fear. That's a good point. And, that would make sense. That would make sense that they're trained. Otherwise, how would you have horses go into any sort of, riot event sort of thing? You know what I mean? Like, they'd have to be trained not to react to that stuff. So, thank you. I appreciate that, man. That's... See, you learn something new every day, and I'm kind of addicted to learning, and I have a friend who calls me a nerd constantly for that, and it's not true. I am not a nerd. I just like to learn stuff. So the next thing I want to get into that is, one more thing, by the way, about Prime Minister Blackface and his financial advice. You notice he's not talking about the bullshit that he did with locking our bank accounts and freezing our assets, that caused a between $2 and $4 trillion bank run in Canada, that he caused that. Him and Krista, my grandfather was a Nazi Friedland, the two of them caused a $1.2 to $1.4 trillion bank run in Canada's economy. Yet these are the people who say, Bitcoin is bad and you need to stick with, traditional assets and traditional cash and don't adopt these new things. Like, all of a sudden they're becoming the conservative in the room. Like, they're no longer adopting new technology and new ideas. So the conservatives are now giving people hope by trying to adopt to new things in the world. Whereas Justin Trudeau and Blackface, the dark regime that they are of negativity and racism and smears, they're now the negative ones telling people you shouldn't adopt to new technology. Except for our ArriveCan app that tracks you. That's good new technology. Like, it's done. Their political careers are done. They're a joke. Amanda said something that I've heard so many times since, our assets were frozen during the EMA. And she says, I took most of my money out of the bank, left just enough to pay my bills. I've heard that countless numbers of time. And I also heard that there are a lot of elderly people during the Emergencies Act who weren't even politically aligned. They just, memories of what their parents told them during the Great Depression, and you can't trust the government, and it just kicked in, that instinct kicked in. They went and they withdrew all their money to either put it on their mattress, to buy precious metals, to store it somewhere. And I know some people as well mentioned to me that they went and they bought Bitcoin. They put a big chunk in Bitcoin, and they said to me, I don't care if it goes down, because I know it fluctuates, it goes up and down, whatever. I just need something I can trust, and I can't trust the Canadian financial system. Bravo, Blackface! That's what you've done. Wonderful. Round of applause. What a dumbass. Anyways, okay. So this weekend, right now is September 14th, I'm recording this. On September 17th, we are having, or the world is having, the World Freedom Rally. Now, what is that? That's been occurring for the past couple of years. So there's in my city in Toronto, there's a group of people that meet, a very large crowd of people, should we say, that meet at Queen's Park every Saturday. They've been doing it since the beginning of COVID. They meet every Saturday and they march down, I think usually Yonge Street, and they go to Dundas Square, and they're protesting the mandate, the restrictions of the government, the ArriveCan app, data tracking, and they want their freedoms back. And they've been doing it every weekend. Winter, summer, doesn't matter. Every weekend they do that. And I went to my first one in, I think it was either April or May of 2020. And I met the guy who started Hugs Over Masks, and there were a bunch of little groups there. They were just starting, and I talked to a bunch of people there. One of them, we got into talking, and one of them asked me to speak, and I said, nah, I don't need to speak everywhere I go. No, thank you. And it was just interesting to see that movement had already started to grow. Well, it's now happening all over the world. And what they do is they'll coordinate a world freedom rally in various countries around the world. I think they do it about every quarter, a few times a year, 4 times a year, if I'm not mistaken. And so this Saturday is another World Freedom Rally event. And you'll see people holding these events in the United States, in Canada, in England, in the Netherlands, in Germany, in France, all across Europe, a couple of countries in Asia, and I think Australia as well, Latin America as well. They're happening absolutely everywhere. You know where they're not happening? In the fake news legacy media. It's amazing what they'll do to go out of their way not to inform the public. As we call it, lies by omission, right? They're lying to you because they're not telling you what's going on. So this weekend is another World Freedom Rally. And once again, the fake news has said nothing, which I don't know. I think that's okay. I mean, and that's just more and more people are realizing if they go to social media and find alternative media sources on those platforms, then they'll find out what's actually happening. So there's a World Freedom Rally this week in Toronto that I will be attending, and I've been asked to speak at. So if you are around on Saturday, it starts, I believe, at 12 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. Come on down and come say hello. My friend Salman Seema, follow him on Twitter, and Hannah, who is here in Instagram. They're helping out with the logistics and leadership and all that sort of stuff, and have been really good at consistent at being there every week. It's quite amazing. So there's some good people there, some good friends, some wonderful people, and there's a whole range of opinions on a whole bunch of topics. I've met a whole bunch of people who I disagree with them on a whole bunch of things, but who cares? That's the excitement, is getting to meet and interact with people who don't have your identical worldview, but who embrace this whole this whole idea of freedom and loving one another and being kind to each other and building a more free world for all of us, for us and for you, and for the people who don't understand why freedom is important for them, right? So it's kind of an amazing atmosphere, and if you can come down, and if you're in Toronto, come say hello, and it'll be great to see you. I may or may not have an announcement in when I give the speech this weekend. We'll find out. Where is it happening in Toronto? It's happening at Queen's Park. So Queen's Park, if you don't know, that's the Ontario Legislature downtown, and goes from Queen Street up to almost Bloor, but not quite there. Jason, see you there. Cool. All right, come say hello face to face. It'll be great. So yeah, we'll see you there. And more there. This week was a whole week of stuff with the book. The final chapter that we had been working on is just about done. That is the chapter on Bitcoin, which is I know that's going to put a warm fuzzy feeling in a lot of people in the Bitcoin community, and it's an amazing story. That chapter could be almost a book in itself, or at least a very, very good and lengthy short story, but we're doing our best to keep it concise and interesting for people who are not necessarily into Bitcoin and the whole philosophy behind what happened with the Freedom Convoy and with Bitcoin. Okay, so we'll see you this weekend at World Freedom Rally. A couple of questions and comments, and then I got to run because this is another day that I will be down in the down south, and I have to go do my quarterly check, and I'm going to be late for it. Okay, so a couple of comments, questions. First, from Ken. He says, somehow the Liberals got my email, and I got 3 requests for donations in a space of 3 days. Have never donated or voted Liberal. Yeah, that shows the level of desperation when they're needing to go to absolutely they're just buying email address databases from anyone. Doesn't matter, right? It's kind of, you throw enough what against the wall and you hope something's going to stick. That's the state of the Liberal Party, because there's really nothing left of the party. There's 20 people who are running PMO. Little interesting thing, by the way. When people talk about, our leaders, like the leader is one person who makes all the decisions. I think most of us have worked in large bureaucracies, large corporations, or the government, and we know what a mess it is and how incompetent things are, and the fact that anything can get done is a complete surprise. I was told, and I didn't realize the number was so high, and maybe there could be a range, but I was told, with regards to PMO, which is the Prime Minister's office, do you know how many people work in that office? Take a guess. What do you think? 20, 50, 30, 25? What do you think? How many people? If you're in the chat, tell me, how many people do you think work for the Prime Minister's office? Well, I'm going to tell you, it's 500. At least that's what I was told. It's 500 people. Even if it was 200 people, no wonder everything is screwed up. Try to manage that sort of bureaucracy. Yeah, 500 people is what I was told. So that is a defunct, incompetent corporation in itself. So no one, and that's my whole problem with the whole binary view of it's, Trudeau bad, somebody else good. It's no, a big part of the problems that we have is incompetence in bureaucracy. Like what all of you experience at work. It doesn't matter if you're a trucker, and like you're a trucker, you're dealing with a company that has, your dispatch department, for example. I mean, how many mistakes does a team of 10 people make? Well, make that 500, and they're all people who could never cut it in the private sector, or mostly people could never cut it in the private sector. They're all activists or political people. Like, no wonder everything's a mess. And that's just, the basic lessons of bureaucracy. So anyways, that's why. You're seeing the Liberals are just buying any databases that they can get or getting access to databases, and they're just trying to flood the market with donations, donation requests, and they're hoping to capitalize on it, and something will come out of it. It's very guerrilla marketing sort of strategy. So that's one thing. The next thing, this put a smile on my face. On the topic of, and we haven't spoken about this today, on the topic of who sabotaged the Freedom Convoy. Do you know who did that yet? Have you thought about it? Because we've been talking about it, and I explained the last time we did this stream that I can go into this. It's quite esoteric, so it's going to take a little while to dissect it over time so you can put all the pieces together. And from what I'm seeing, there's already people putting the pieces together, so it's pretty obvious to some people. But people are not going to be happy with me because they're going to think, oh yeah, I want to hear who sabotaged the Freedom Convoy, and that's why I checked with you guys to say, do you really want to know? Because don't shoot the messenger. Don't do what the lefties do. When you hear something you dislike, you slip into cognitive dissonance, and then I become the bad guy. I'm just going to tell you what happened, and if you're going to get angry at the people who did it. Don't get angry at me. But anyways, this comment was great. It was people aren't ready for the it's a question. People aren't ready for who sabotaged the Freedom Convoy, ? And then he says, ... and it was ... BJdichter all along. Yeah, exactly. Like this is a supporter, so we know it's... but it's just so funny. There are some people trying to put that out there. Like, yeah, the guy with the broken ankle who could barely get into the shower, who was in a wheelchair the whole time, he's the one who ran around behind the scenes and sabotaged his own convoy. He was the one doing all the legwork. Like, if you understood, like, I could barely get onto the bed. Like, it was such a pain in the ass because it just this long cast, and I was supposed to keep my leg up the entire time in the air, and I just couldn't. I couldn't. I had interviews to do and whatever. But it's just really funny that there are some people that they'll just like John said. There's so many people that won't trust anything in the legacy media, but they'll swallow anything in the on the internet, and that's a good example. Like, just think, you think I, who couldn't move and was struggling just to go brush my teeth, was sabotaging my own convoy that I was spending so many hours on every day? Like, come on, people, like, just. But people make decisions based on emotion, right? So if somebody just decides they have it out for me, no matter what you tell them, they're never going to listen. Lisa Lan, I think it was some of the original organizers. That's a little bit of an asterisk. That's yet to be determined. But you might be right, and you're really warm, really, really warm, because as we've discovered in the past couple of weeks, what was an original organizer is really fluid, because there was a whole bunch of other groups that were working, let's say, tangentially around the Freedom Convoy, that I had no idea this was going on. Like, most of us didn't. And but I think you're definitely getting warm, so we will explore that. But yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that. And thank you for that comment. That's great. K9, September 15th, musical ride ongoing in Welland, Ontario at the fairgrounds. Wonder if some of the famous ones will be there. The ones we have their words from Ottawa. I don't know. I will be driving by Welland later on, though, but I'm not sure. Last comment was I can think of a couple that were there to sabotage. So I guess what we've determined, it couldn't be one person. I think that's pretty obvious. It would have to be a whole bunch of people, or a group, or a number of groups, or a bunch of people saying they're parts of different groups but really weren't, or whatever. But we'll get more into that as time goes on. But for right now, what's important is let's get out and enjoy the last warm days of the season this weekend. If you haven't come out to any of these freedom rallies, I'm telling you, you're going to love it. You're going to love the atmosphere. Lisa Land, the MOU. Oh, that's very interesting. So this MOU thing that the government's losing their minds over, even though they produce their own MOUs, which, okay, fine. That was drafted by some group called, I can't remember the name of it. It was another group they were doing, I think they're trying to help with the mapping or something, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know who those people were. People out west knew who they were. She says it's Canada Unity. Yeah, it could be. There were so many websites I was seeing pop up over and over again. But that MOU was drafted in 2019. It wasn't for the Freedom Convoy. So the government's trying to make this claim that, you produced this MOU for the Freedom Convoy. It's like, no, that's from 2019. Now, there might have been somebody with that group that was trying to change some of the wording to make it more applicable to the convoy. That I have no idea. But that group was not Freedom Convoy. That's another, volunteer organization that was, I guess, in support of it. So there are a lot of people that were volunteering for this that the fake news media decided they wanted to call them convoy organizers, where no, there were a group of people, there were different people that were volunteering in different capacities. And I wasn't out west with the convoy at that point, so I didn't really know. That's what they had to take care of. And that's when we started to have problems. And but I'll go more to that moving forward, because some people were saying some really dumb things. And then we find out that a couple of those people have a history of being informants for the police. So it's funny how the government's crowing and crying about these people, but they're good enough for the government to hire when they want them, right? So anyways, I don't like the word hypocrisy, but I do like the word deception, because that's all we see from this narrative on the fake news media and the Prime Minister blackface diversity regime. It's constant deception. The Twitter trolls state that the convoy was trying to overthrow the government with his... come on. I mean, how much more pointed could it be than when I explained on Jordan Peterson's podcast? And I said specifically and directly, without any ambiguity, quote, "We are not here to overthrow the government. That's what elections are for. We want an end to the mandates and an end to the ArriveCan app." And towards the end of it, I also commented on the rhetoric from our fake news media. I didn't refer to this fake news media, but the rhetoric from politicians in our media needs to stop. The smearing and the name calling like a bunch of 5-year-olds in a schoolyard needs to stop. It's destroying they're attempting to destroy our society unsuccessfully. But it's really inappropriate. And that's why they have so little credibility. And that's why we do this. That's why, we're talking about some of these issues that, some of them have negative connotations and whatever. But we're not going to get emotional and angered and what's the word they use, triggered and whatever. Like, we're just going to keep with a positive frame, because those people slowly over time are starting to shift. I'm seeing more and more normies becoming more and more aware of what went on and what transpired during the Freedom Convoy, despite the desperate attempts by the government and legacy media to change that. And it's wonderful to see them say, you know what, I can't believe what I was watching and I thought it was real. Like, I didn't know. And I'm like, it's okay. It's not your fault. You didn't know, but now you do. And now we can all start coming together and aligning ourselves with people who we agree with or disagree with, but we all want better freedom and more freedoms for all of us. So that's what the future is going to be. They can't vilify you with the truth. Well, they try to spin, but that's it's not going to happen. Anyways, Jason, thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. I guess I'll see you at the Freedom Rally. I don't know if I'm going to do another one of these on Saturday. I'm thinking I might before we go to the rally. Maybe I'll just do it a little bit earlier, and we can just do a warm-up, a prepper for the Freedom Rally. And come on out and please come talk. Let's chill. Let's hang out, and let's make it the best day of the entire summer to top off the summer as we get into the winter. Let's all support each other and support all those people who've been going out there every week. For all of us. So, and give our thanks to them. Substack, BJdichter.substack.com. Locals, right here, honkingforfreedom.locals.com. The Mark Petroni Show. I've been going on Mark's show for like a year, and I feel bad. I never really promoted as much as I should. So if you have a podcast player, whether it's Overcast or Apple's Podcasts or SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever it is, type in the Mark Petroni Show and check out the episode from yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And listen to us talk about blackface and Bitcoin. Twitter, Getter, BJdichter.com. And for the book launch event, which we're starting to work on right now, if you want to come to the book launch, which will be in Toronto, and I'm also getting requests for book launches in other cities and other countries. If you want to come to the first book launch, which will be in Toronto, join honkyforfreedom.locals.com. That's going to be the list that gets first access to getting tickets for the live event, and then we'll trail it off into subscribers to the Substack. So you have 500 or so people here, and then 100,000 people in the Substack, and then it'll be for the general public. And unfortunately, there's only going to be 200 spaces, minus a whole bunch have been taken up already because there's people that either have been involved or people need to be there. You'll see why. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. I promise you're going to enjoy it. So don't forget to join honkingforfreedom.locals.com and have, honestly, the best day of the week. It's Wednesday. Today is hump day. From here on in, the rest of the week is shorter. But if you're enjoying your days at work and you're making the best of it, it doesn't really make a difference. If you're maintaining that positive frame at work, doesn't matter what happens. You're just going to enjoy yourself. And when you hear some annoying noise in the background, sit back, do what I do, grab your coffee, and you can let them go on about their TPS reports, and just don't let it affect you negatively, and move forward. So have an awesome day. Be good to everybody. Be kind to strangers. I promise you, it's going to make you feel better.